you today. My name is Deb Nauerth, and I am my first year in principalship at Woodrow Wilson Elementary. This is my second year in administration. Last year I was the assistant principal at Amanda Arnold Elementary. This is my 17th year in education, and I started as a middle school science teacher at the Catholic school, and from there then I came to USD 383 and did special education, both gifted ed and in the resource room. And so I got to see the gamut, the full spectrum of special education, including students with behavioral needs as well. And along the journey, along the path, people have just encouraged me to take on different leadership roles. And being a principal is never something that I set out to do or intended to do. But along the pathway, people would ask, can you do some professional development on this? Would you be willing to share some information about this? And of course, always I was willing and took on those challenges. And then eventually, somewhere along the way, I thought, I could be a principal. Why not? So, and that's how we're here today. So it's just the influence of those around me that have encouraged me along the way.
Okay, and that's part of our first question then, is to talk about some of those specific influences that were on you, the people that influenced you to get where you are now.
I would say that would stretch back to probably my third grade teacher, Miss Leona Valine. And she was an incredible teacher because she always pushed us hard and believed the best in us and expected us to give our very best the first try. She was very demanding, yet she was very loving and kind. She made learning fun. She turned every lesson into an adventure. And she would often read Little House on the Prairie books to us and make that come to life. And she would turn off the lights and turn on a kerosene lantern and set the stage for the story for us. So that was always exciting. So probably her classroom was the first time that I actually went home and decided that I would try my own hand at being a teacher in my classroom. That was an unfinished basement that had floor-to-ceiling unfinished walls, which were chalkboards, of course. So that was very exciting. And she would let me come in early or stay late, and I would volunteer to help her out. And so then she would give me extra worksheets or bits of chalk and things like that to create my own classroom. So that was an exciting piece in memory.
I'm not sure we've mentioned this already, but that was here in this building, wasn't it?
That was here at Woodrow Wilson Elementary, that is correct. And it's a full circle for me to come back. I never in a million years would have guessed that I would be sitting here today as a principal of Woodrow Wilson, the same school that I attended 3rd through 6th grade. So.
Take us a little bit further then about getting into education. You sort of talked about being interested in it, but actually when you moved into education.
When I moved into education, my field experiences were also here at Woodrow Wilson, interestingly enough. I was placed with my 4th grade teacher, Miss Suzanne Otto, and my 6th grade teacher, Nancy Robinson. And when I had the placement, I went back to K-State to say, is it okay that I go back to the same school that I went to elementary school at? And they said, well, sure, we don't have a problem unless you do or you think they would. And I said, no, I don't think they'd have a problem, and I was just thrilled. So I got to come back and see the school again from a different perspective, and so that was exciting. And to be in those classrooms with my teachers and that taught me, it was really a full circle. And then my experiences kept pulling me back to Woodrow Wilson. For whatever reason, I'm not sure, the doors kept calling me back. And so for my master's placement for special education, it was here again at Woodrow Wilson. So I again asked, is this okay to do this? I did my field placement for undergraduate, and they said, sure, we don't have a problem unless you do. And I said, of course not. I was just so excited. And so I got to work with Joan McElvain, and that was very exciting. So when the job came open for a principal, I thought, we'll see if those doors are calling one more time, and that's how we're here today. So many exciting circles that keep pulling me back to the school.
Well, as you're talking about the circles, the next question is related to how your career progressed from the beginning to now, and talking about specific influences on you through that time.
I would have to say that my career has always been touched by significant people in my life who believed the best in me, who always expected me to work hard, and probably believed more in me than I did in myself. And I would say that's what encouraged me to continue a journey that just sort of took on a life of its own. And I think that is because the outside influences of those who said, I think you can, I think you should, why not? And it's their belief in me that encouraged my own belief in myself and built my self-confidence of thinking, absolutely, I'll give it a try. I think back to when I was an undergraduate and I worked at the University Counseling Services, and Dr. Fred Newton gave me my first job there at the tender age of 19, being a keyboard operator. And it was ironic because when I first came in, the office manager came out and said, "Are you Deb?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "There's a terrible misunderstanding." And so she left, and I thought, oh dear. And so she came back a little while later and she said, "You are Deb Nauerth?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, then I guess you're the one we hired. You're just way younger than I expected." And so for me, I was taking on the journey of going to college when nobody in my family had done that. So it was a new adventure, and I knew I would have to pay for that on my own. So I was very thankful to Dr. Newton because he always said, no matter what, graduate from college. I told you this would happen.
It's okay. He'd be very proud of you now. He is.
He is the first influence of somebody that I knew that had a doctorate. And I always had this vision that they must be so intelligent they can't connect with people if you have a doctorate. And he took on the role as a father figure because I was in Manhattan and my parents had gone through a divorce, and so they had gone on their way, and I chose to stay in Manhattan. And as my load for classes became increasingly demanding, keeping up with the 20-hour-a-week job at the university to pay for school was very difficult. And so I told him at one point, I think I'm going to need to drop out of school because I don't think I can keep up with the pace of working in my classes. And his words were, "I won't let you do that. You can't do that. You're not going to drop out. You're going to graduate." So I attribute a lot of his generosity and caring, of hiring and taking a risk on a young 19-year-old that he saw potential in. And not only that, rearranged the schedule of the office to ensure that I continued taking classes would happen, and that was a priority for him. And so he allowed me to come in after hours when the office was closed to come in and do dictation, and that way I could go to school during the day and continue to work in the evening. So it's people like that I hope to someday have an influence that's so strong that it changes the course of one's life.
That's an amazing story.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the next question too,
Mm-hmm.
is ways you found to do it for others.
Mm-hmm.
So of those stories you can tell us?
Absolutely. Again, I think it's that natural push from others that have taken me to different places to influence others. When I look at coming out of the classroom, I loved teaching and taught for 15 years, and it was very exciting and motivating, and I loved my students and the parents and my colleagues. And it was Barb Moffmer, who is the clinical instructor at Amanda Arnold, who encouraged me to take on the role of clinical instructor for Kansas State University. Not only did she encourage me, she literally pushed me. I received a call from her one day, and she said, "Deb, I wanted to let you know that I've decided to retire, and I've decided that you'll be my replacement." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And if you know Barb Moffmer, she's absolutely amazing. And I said, "Oh, Barb, I don't know that I'm ready to come out of the classroom. I love teaching." And she said, "Of course you are. It's your time. It's your time to start touching the future of education." So I listened to her words and I thought, she's right. I just needed that push from outside, from somebody else to say, "You're ready to do this." And through that conversation, she said, "I've already talked to your principal and I've already told him that you're my choice to fill my position. And so it's a done deal. Really, all I need to do is train you." That was the beginning of my influence, I feel, on interns and those that are training to be teachers. Outside of that, I think would be professional development that I provided in my buildings to my colleagues, and they were always gracious to learn along with me. I always say it's important that you're not the expert, but you're the learner with everybody else. And they were always gracious to let me learn right alongside with them, even though I was giving my hand at leading. And so as I took on the clinical instructor position, it was a nice piece for me to take on the role of encouraging young teachers and those who were training to be in education and to be teachers. It was interesting because along that journey you come across people who, just like me, are passionate about teaching, but yet don't see that potential that they hold within themselves. So I always try to be very encouraging to others, to build them up, to be positive, to look for the good. And though we're always striving to improve ourselves and do the best that we can, we have to stop and reflect on the things that we are doing well and be grateful for those things. So I always try to point those out in others, and with the teachers that I'm working with now, I hope they see my positive influence and that encouragement. I always think that we have to work very hard, but we also have to have fun. So I try to keep a combination of hard work and fun in our school.
I'm sure they will look forward to that. I was also thinking perhaps the future next principal of Woodrow Wilson is out there in the building somewhere.
I tell the kids that every opportunity I get. You never know. One of the wolves right here might be the next principal. In fact, I had a student that came to see me the other day, and she said, "I've never been in the office." I said, "Well, come on in here. You need to come into the principal's office." And she said, "Oh, wow, I just thought it was if you were naughty." And I said, "Oh, of course not. It's to celebrate, too. We celebrate good things, and it's a fun place to be." So I had her have a seat at my chair, and I said, "Just look around, because you never know. You might be a principal here at Woodrow Wilson." And she just looked around, and she said, "Well, I always wanted to be a teacher." And I said, "So did I." It's that full circle. I think it's important to build hope in students, and I feel like that's been done for me as well, is that others have built hope in me to encourage me to see something bigger than I saw myself.
What about advice do you have for others trying to find somebody like that to influence them? Any advice for them?
Absolutely. I think it's important for young teachers to take a look and observe their surroundings. Find somebody who's visionary. Find somebody who has big dreams, who's optimistic, who thinks outside of the box, who's not afraid to think, what if, I wonder, and why not? I think it's important to first observe and see those around you, and then find those people and learn all you can from them. Go observe, spend time with them. And almost always you will find their arms are wide open, and they're willing and ready to mentor and take you along a journey that's just absolutely amazing. I think education is an opportunity to bring the most joy into one's life, fulfillment. I don't know that everybody else gets the opportunity to be as excited every day when they go to school. Every day when I pull into the parking lot and I open the doors to school, I'm always excited, and I hope that others who join the profession find that passion as well. And if not, I've always encouraged teachers. Teaching is not for everybody, and that's okay. If you don't come to school and you're not excited about your students, the things that you're going to hear from them, they say the funniest things, the lessons that you learn along the way, if that doesn't bring you the greatest joy in your life, you might want to reconsider, because education may not be for you. And I think it takes courage for someone to have gone through the education and the rigor that it's required to be a teacher, and then come to that conclusion to say, you know, education is not for me. And I think that's a brave person that comes to that conclusion. But I think we need to serve our students and serve them well. And we owe it to them to give them our best. And if that's not where we feel fulfilled and happy, then we might think about a different career.
That's a nice segue into the next question, because we were trying to find out, as part of this project, K-State influences, and you already mentioned one. So are there others along the way that were circles of influence for you?
Absolutely. When I took my first position as a science teacher in middle school, it's the position that was open. I have to be honest. Middle school was not something that I went running to, and was always excited about middle school. And so I was very, very nervous, thinking, I don't know that I can do this. And it was those around me, Dr. Gail Schroyer, Melissa Hancock, that surrounded me and said, you can do this, you will do this. They ensured that I had the best of materials to bring hands-on, meaningful learning to my students. They were there to mentor and guide me. Anytime I needed anything, I knew I could just pick up the phone and call them, and their support would be there always. And so I think it was that influence, that encouragement, because honestly, the first couple weeks, I cried going into school thinking, what have I done? And it wasn't until probably 4 weeks in, I absolutely knew I had found my niche. I didn't think it would be middle school students, but I absolutely loved them, loved the school and the parents, and couldn't imagine doing anything different. I think that I owe a lot of credit to Melissa Hancock and Gail Schroyer for encouraging me and saying, you can do this. Don't be afraid. It's natural to be uncertain at first, but you can do this, and don't give up. And that was something that I hung on to, and I hope that I can pass on to others as well.
And I was thinking perhaps that's still going on as you finish up your own doctorate?
Absolutely. Those two are still instrumental in my life and my career, and always have been. I'm working on my doctorate right now. Ironically, it came through just a simple question from Gail. And she looked at me one day and she said, why do you not have a doctorate? Why are you not working on a PhD? And it was just that simple question that had me reflect on, I'd always thought it would happen. I just never made it happen.
We're excited that it's going to happen. We're looking forward to that with you too.
Thank you.
The last question we have is any recommendations of others. You've kind of already mentioned a few names that we might have, but others that you think should be part of this project?
I think your project would be lacking if you didn't include Gail Schroyer and Melissa Hancock. Both of them have had an immense influence, not only on me, as you can see, it's a very touching piece. And I hope in my career I can just have a fraction of the influence on somebody that they've had on me.
I think you already have.
I think that the way they have touched teachers throughout Kansas and throughout the nation, absolutely amazing.
Anything else you'd like to add? Anything we left out?
I think the main thing is never doubt yourself. I think we're our worst enemies at times. Don't doubt yourself, and be open to a journey, and be willing to go where it leads. I never set the journey out before myself. It just happened, and I was happy to go along the way. And I don't know where the journey will take me from here. It's not over yet. And I think there are great things in store, and I'm excited to see where the journey in education continues to lead me.
Could you talk a little bit about your topic for your dissertation?
I can. My topic is on self-efficacy of teachers, and I'm doing that research here at Woodrow Wilson. The teachers that I work with are so gracious to open their hearts, their classrooms, and their teaching lives to me. And I asked them if they would be willing to let me do this, and I told them right up front, if they weren't comfortable, that was okay. I wouldn't consider doing research at our school unless they were open to that. And they graciously said, oh, sure. So it's exciting. The research that I'm doing is on professional development of lesson study. And I'm working with Dr. Shapina Rumsey, and she's coming in and she's doing professional development on mathematical argumentation. And so we're looking at the lesson study model and how does that shape one's self-efficacy. And I feel that self-efficacy is very important to me personally and is a very fitting piece for me to research, because I believe it's my self-efficacy that started off low and through the influence of others has built. And I'm hoping that through our research that we can continue to build the self-efficacy of teachers through providing meaningful professional development and opportunities for them to learn and grow, get excited about teaching and doing many new best practices in their classroom, and take that to the next level to help them see the potential that they have within themselves.
That sounds like starting another circle of influence.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you. It's been an immense opportunity. Kansas State University has absolutely transformed my life. When I was starting to work on a dissertation in my doctoral program, somebody said, you know what, you did your bachelor's at K-State and your master's. Don't you think it's time to move on to a different university? And I said, I have the best of the best. Why would I choose to go somewhere else? So, thank you.
That's a great way to finish. Thank you very much.